And rather than being like, oh, the issue here is that people are talking about men's behavior and what that is, and the problem is the people who have experienced all this horrible stuff and who are afraid and who are calling for justice, and many of whom have kept this to themselves for years or decades. So maybe the problem's not there. Maybe the problem is that, you know, men aren't actually getting out there and saying, stop the violence, right? Let's prevent this. Let's be active in that space. Right? It could have been, I mean, if someone was going to, it's hard, I know you don't, it's not normally how we react when we get defensive, but when we can actually create space for people to realize that that feeling that bubbled up where they're like, oh, hold on, I'm being unfairly attacked here, is actually, let's unpack that a little bit and see, well, what's the real source of that injustice in this conversation? And it's the violence, right? And it's that power disparity, and it's who it impacts. It's like, let's jump into that space and be active in addressing that problem, so we don't have to talk about not all men because there is no violence, right? That's the end point, and that's the thing that all men can have a part in playing, you know, part in actually, I don't know, producing in their friendship groups, in the communities that they're in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think there's so much potential and so much strength in this type of work. And we need to work hard as men on this, and we still need to accept the criticism. We still need to accept that and use that discomfort to move. A lot of men get uncomfortable and they fight back. We see that a lot with men's rights activists, men's rights groups, who will just use their every breath to blame women for all the issues, and they don't actually realize that they're actually creating so many more problems. I often call some of these groups, you know, men's, you know, wolves in sheep's clothing. They promise so much for boys and men, but they don't deliver anything. You know, I remember listening to a podcast many years ago of 3 guys speaking about helping men, and they spent 35 minutes of a 40-minute podcast decrying feminism. There was no solutions, absolutely no solutions given. And it was just, I think, you know, and I think our young men, I don't know how you find this, Dan, but I see lots of narrative from the manosphere, from men's rights groups, incels coming into schools, coming into, even into some of the headlines in the papers. Some of the stuff around Angela Rayner in the last few days, if you look at the headlines, it's manosphere talk. It's men's rights type narrative that's coming in, minimizing the situation, pushing the blame back to the victim. And I really think, yeah, our young boys are really susceptible to some of this stuff, really at risk. And the work that Dan does, other people do, that I do, I suppose, is giving some resilience to these young men. You know, if we can give resilience for them to, you know, to counter this stuff, the better, the skills to be good men in 2022. And that's awareness and confidence.